Before we dive into this incredible true story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. This is a story that will shake you to your core. Enjoy the journey. I never thought my life would crumble on a Tuesday morning in October. My name is Ethan Caldwell, and for 32 years, I believed I knew exactly who I was. A humble insurance adjuster from Phoenix, married to the love of my life, Sarah, with a brother named Marcus, who I'd trust with anything. That morning started like any other. Coffee brewing, morning news humming in the background, Sarah's side of the bed already cold because she always woke up before me. But something felt different. The house was too quiet, too empty. I found the letter on the kitchen counter, placed neatly next to my favorite mug, the one that said "World's Best Husband" that Sarah had given me last Christmas. My hands trembled as I recognized her handwriting on the envelope marked simply Ethan. "My dearest Ethan," it began, and my heart already knew what was coming. "By the time you read this, Marcus and I will be gone. I know this will destroy you, and I'm sorry, but I can't live this lie anymore. I've fallen in love with your brother. We've been seeing each other for months, and we've decided to start a new life together in California." The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering against the tile floor, just like my world was shattering around me. But she wasn't finished destroying me. "I know you'll never forgive us, and we don't expect you to. We're taking my car and what little savings I had. Don't try to find us, Ethan. We're never coming back. I hope someday you'll understand that the heart wants what it wants. I did love you once, but that feels like a lifetime ago now." The letter was signed simply Sarah. No love, no regrets, just my name at the bottom like I was receiving a business correspondence. I sank into the kitchen chair, my entire body numb. 32 years old, and my wife of 8 years had just run away with my only brother, the man who'd been my best man at our wedding, who'd eaten Sunday dinners at our table every week, who'd consoled me when Dad died and helped me carry the casket. The silence in the house was deafening. Sarah's coffee cup was gone from the sink. Her favorite sweater was missing from the hallway closet. Even her small, succulent plant was gone from the windowsill. They'd planned this meticulously, taking only what belonged to her, leaving me with nothing but memories and this cruel letter. My phone sat on the counter, and for a moment I considered calling Marcus. What would I say? "Why did you take my wife? How long have you been planning this? How could you do this to me?" But I knew there would be no answers that could heal this wound. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at that letter, reading it over and over, hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Something that didn't feel like a dagger through my chest. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer it, but something made me pick up. "Mr. Caldwell?" The voice was professional, crisp. "This is Jennifer Walsh from Goldman Sachs Investment Management. I need to discuss your portfolio with you. There's been some significant movement, and we need your immediate attention on a matter involving your $14 million account." I dropped the phone. $14 million. There had to be some mistake. But as I picked up the phone with shaking hands, I realized that maybe, just maybe, Sarah and Marcus had made the biggest mistake of their lives. The woman on the phone was still talking, but her words sounded like they were coming from underwater. $14 million. That was impossible. I was an insurance adjuster making $42,000 a year. I drove a 12-year-old Honda Civic. I clipped coupons for groceries. "Mr. Caldwell, are you there?" Jennifer Walsh's voice cut through my shock. There must be some mistake," I stammered, still holding Sarah's letter in my other hand. "I don't have $14 million. I barely have $1,400 in my checking account. Sir, I'm looking at your account right now. The cryptocurrency investments you made 7 years ago have reached a valuation of $14.2 million as of this morning's market opening. We've been trying to reach you for weeks about portfolio diversification. 7 years ago." My mind raced back to 2017. I remembered now, barely. After a particularly brutal day at work dealing with flood damage claims, I'd gone home and had too many beers. I'd seen something on the news about Bitcoin, and in my slightly intoxicated state, I'd made what I thought was the stupidest decision of my life. I'd taken our entire emergency fund, $8,000 that Sarah didn't know about from a side job I'd done helping my neighbor renovate his kitchen, and bought Bitcoin when it was trading at around $2,400 per coin. I'd created the investment account using my work email address, the one Sarah never checked, figuring I'd either lose the money or maybe make enough to surprise her with a nice vacation. Then I'd promptly forgotten about it. Life got busy. Work got stressful. Sarah started talking about having kids, and I buried the memory of that impulsive purchase deep in my mind, too embarrassed to even check if I'd lost our emergency fund to cryptocurrency nonsense. Mr. Caldwell, your original Bitcoin purchase has split and grown substantially. You're also showing profits from Ethereum investments that were automatically diversified through our smart portfolio management system that you opted into. I walked to my home office, hands trembling as I opened my old laptop. Buried in my email was indeed an account with Goldman Sachs that I'd completely forgotten about. 7 years of statements I'd never opened. 7 years of growth I'd never monitored. The numbers on the screen didn't make sense. $2 million. More money than I'd ever dreamed of having. More money than anyone in my family had ever possessed. And Sarah had no idea. Every Sunday dinner when Marcus complained about his construction job paying so little, every time Sarah worked overtime at the hospital to help pay our mortgage, every time we decided we couldn't afford a vacation or a new car, I'd had millions sitting in an account I'd forgotten existed. The irony hit me like a physical blow. The woman who'd just abandoned me for being too ordinary, too poor, too boring. She'd left behind a fortune that could have changed everything. But then I realized something else, something darker. Sarah had access to all our financial accounts. She'd helped me organize our tax documents every year. She'd seen our joint checking, our savings, our mortgage statements. If she'd wanted to find hidden money, she could have. But she'd never looked hard enough to discover this account because she'd never suspected I was capable of keeping such a secret. She'd left me because she thought I was financially mediocre. She'd chosen Marcus because he promised her adventure, passion, something beyond my steady but unremarkable paycheck. I stared at the balance on the screen and felt something I hadn't expected: power. For the first time in my adult life, I held all the cards. Sarah and Marcus thought they were running away from a heartbroken insurance adjuster who'd spend months crying into his pillow. They had no idea they'd just abandoned a multimillionaire. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Ethan, please don't hate us. We'll contact you in a few weeks when things settle down. M." I smiled for the first time that day. It wasn't a happy smile. They'd contact me in a few weeks. Oh, I had a feeling this conversation was going to be very different from what Marcus expected. 3 days passed before I could think clearly. 3 days of staring at bank statements, investment portfolios, and cryptocurrency valuations that seemed too surreal to be true. But the money was real, and so was my plan. I didn't want revenge. I wanted justice. And sometimes, justice requires patience. Monday morning, I walked into the office of Patricia Blackwood, the most expensive private investigator in Phoenix. Her reputation was legendary among divorce attorneys, and her fees reflected her success rate. What used to be an impossible expense was now pocket change. "Mr. Caldwell," Patricia said, studying me across her mahogany desk. She was a woman in her 50s, with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "You want me to find your wife and brother, but you don't want them to know they're being watched. May I ask why?" "I need to understand what I'm dealing with," I said carefully. "I need to know if this was planned, how long it's been going on, and what their real intentions are." She quoted me a retainer fee that would have bankrupted me a week ago. I wrote the check without blinking. "I'll have preliminary information within 48 hours, she said. "But Mr. Caldwell, are you prepared for what I might find? Sometimes the truth is more painful than the mystery." I thought about Sarah's letter, about Marcus's text message, about 8 years of marriage that had apparently meant nothing. "I'm already living with the worst truth I can imagine," I told her. Whatever you find can't be worse than what I'm feeling right now. I was wrong. Patricia called me Tuesday evening. We need to meet tonight. There are things you need to see that can't be discussed over the phone. Her office felt different at night. Darker, more serious. She had a manila folder thick with photographs and documents. Your brother Marcus has been planning this for 6 months, she began, sliding the first set of photos across the desk. These are from a surveillance camera at a motel in Scottsdale. Same room, every Tuesday afternoon for the past 4 months. The photos showed Sarah and Marcus entering and leaving a cheap motel. The timestamps showed they'd been there for hours each time. But what struck me wasn't the betrayal. I'd already accepted that. It was Sarah's face in the photos. She looked miserable, stressed, nothing like the happy woman in love that her letter had described. There's more, Patricia continued. Marcus has been researching divorce law in Arizona, specifically community property statutes and how to maximize financial settlements. She showed me printouts from Marcus's computer, browser histories, downloaded documents about asset division, even consultations with divorce attorneys that he'd scheduled and cancelled. Mr. Caldwell, I believe your brother seduced your wife specifically to destroy your marriage. The question is, why? What does he gain from breaking up your home? I stared at the evidence, my mind racing. Marcus knew about our joint checking account, our mortgage, our car payments, but he'd never shown any interest in our finances beyond the occasional complaint about being broke. Unless... Patricia, I need you to dig deeper into Marcus's financial situation. Everything. Credit cards, debts, bank statements. And I need you to check if he's ever tried to access any information about my personal finances. What aren't you telling me, Mr. Caldwell? I looked at this woman who specialized in uncovering secrets, and I realized I was about to trust her with the biggest secret of my life. My brother thinks he's stealing a wife from a man with nothing to offer, I said quietly. But he's actually about to discover he just made the biggest mistake of his life. 3 hours later, Patricia had preliminary findings that made my blood run cold. Marcus owed $80,000 to various creditors. His construction company was failing. He'd been borrowing money from loan sharks with interest rates that would destroy him within months. But the most damning evidence was a text message thread Patricia had recovered from a phone Marcus had thrown away. Messages to someone named Tony about a big score and how he just needed to get the wife on his side and they'd be set for life after the divorce settlement. Marcus wasn't in love with Sarah. He was using her to get to money he thought I had. The problem was, he had no idea how much money there actually was, and now I had to decide what to do with that information. The next morning, I sat in my kitchen staring at Patricia's report. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus had orchestrated this entire affair as a financial scheme. But the most disturbing discovery was yet to come. At 9:47 a.m., my phone rang. Sarah's number. Ethan? Her voice was small, frightened, nothing like the confident woman who'd written that letter. Please don't hang up. I'd rehearsed this moment in my mind 100 times, but hearing her voice made my chest tight. What do you want, Sarah? I made a terrible mistake. Marcus isn't who I thought he was. He's scaring me, Ethan. Scaring you how? I kept my voice neutral, though my grip on the phone was white-knuckled. He's been drinking constantly since we got to Los Angeles. He keeps talking about money, about how we're going to be rich when you sell the house to pay him back for taking care of his problem. Ethan, what does he mean by that? My blood went cold. Where are you right now, Sarah? In the bathroom of some cheap motel? He thinks I'm in the shower. Ethan, he has your address, your work schedule, everything. He's been planning this for months, and I was too stupid to see it. Sarah, listen to me carefully. Do you have any way to leave? Any money? A car? Anything? No. He took my credit cards. Says it's for our safety, but I think he doesn't trust me not to run back to you. The irony was suffocating. She was trapped with a man she'd left me for, calling the husband she'd abandoned for help. but something in her voice told me this was real terror, not manipulation. "Sarah, there's something you need to know about Marcus. He's not in love with you. This was never about love." I told her about Patricia's investigation, about the debts, about the text messages to Tony. With each revelation, I could hear her breathing get shakier. "Oh God, Ethan, what have I done? I destroyed our marriage for a man who was just using me to get to you." "Sarah, can you get to a police station or call 911? He watches me constantly. The only reason I can call you now is because he passed out drunk an hour ago. Ethan, he has a gun. A gun. My brother, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who'd helped me move into my first apartment, was armed and desperate. Sarah, I'm going to help you, but I need you to do exactly what I say." Damn, what I did next went against every instinct for self-preservation I had. I wired $500 to a Western Union near their motel with instructions for Sarah to create a code word that only she would know. It was enough money for a bus ticket anywhere and a few days of food and shelter. "Get that money, get on a bus, and go somewhere Marcus can't find you. Don't tell me where. When you're safe, call this number." I gave her Patricia's direct line. "Tell her you're Ethan's friend, and she'll know what to do." "Why are you helping me?" Sarah whispered. "I destroyed everything between us. Because despite what you did, I still care about you, and because Marcus is dangerous, and I won't let him hurt anyone else." After I hung up, I realized what I'd just done. I'd saved the woman who'd betrayed me from the brother who'd betrayed us both. But I'd also removed Sarah from Marcus's control, which meant Marcus would soon realize his plan was falling apart, and when desperate people with guns realize their schemes are failing, they do desperate things. 2 hours later, Patricia called. "Ethan, we have a problem. Our surveillance team just lost Marcus. He left the motel alone, driving erratically, and we couldn't follow without being spotted. But based on his direction, I think he's heading back to Phoenix." My stomach dropped. "How long until he gets here?" "If he drives straight through, 12 hours, maybe less if he speeds." I looked around my house, the same house where I'd found Sarah's letter just days ago. Now it felt like a trap waiting to spring. "Patricia, there's something else I need to tell you. Something that changes everything about why Marcus is doing this." "What haven't you told me, Ethan?" I took a deep breath. "Marcus thinks he's coming back to Phoenix to collect money from a broke insurance adjuster who he can intimidate or manipulate. And he has no idea he's actually coming after a man with $14 million who just saved his wife and destroyed his plan." The silence on the phone stretched for a long moment. "Mr. Caldwell," Patricia said finally, "I think you need to disappear for a while. Tonight." I didn't disappear. Instead, I did something that surprised even Patricia. I stayed exactly where Marcus expected to find me, but I wasn't defenseless. By 6 p.m., Patricia had positioned surveillance teams around my neighborhood. 2 plainclothes officers were stationed in unmarked cars on my street, and I had something Marcus would never expect: complete control of the situation. At 11:43 p.m., headlights swept across my living room window. Marcus's beat-up Ford pickup truck pulled into my driveway with the aggressive confidence of a man who thought he held all the cards. I watched from my window as he sat in the truck for several minutes, probably working up his courage or planning his approach. When he finally got out, I could see even in the darkness that he looked terrible, unshaven, clothes wrinkled, movements unsteady. The knock on my door was sharp, aggressive, the knock of a man who expected to intimidate. "Ethan, open up! We need to talk!" I opened the door slowly, keeping my expression neutral. Marcus looked worse up close, bloodshot eyes, alcohol on his breath, and a barely controlled rage simmering just beneath the surface. "Hello, Marcus!" "Where is she?" he demanded, pushing past me into the house. "Where's Sarah?" "I have no idea what you're talking about." He spun around, and I saw the bulge under his jacket that confirmed Patricia's intelligence about the gun. "Don't lie to me, Ethan. She was supposed to call me hours ago. The motel manager said she checked out this morning, and someone saw her at a Western Union. You helped her, didn't you?" I sat down in my favorite chair, the one where I'd read Sarah's letter 3 days ago. Why would I help the wife who ran away with my brother? Because you're pathetic, Marcus exploded. Because you've always been pathetic. You let people walk all over you. You settle for mediocre everything, and you'd probably take her back even after what we did. Is that what you think of me? After 32 years of being brothers? Marcus started pacing, his agitation growing. I think you're a loser, Ethan. I think you've always been a loser. Nice house, steady job, perfect wife, and what do you do with it? Nothing. You live like a monk, save every penny, never take any risks. And you thought Sarah deserved better? I thought Sarah deserved someone who wasn't afraid to live, someone who could give her excitement, adventure, maybe even some real money someday. I almost laughed at the irony. Real money? Yeah, real money. Not your little insurance adjuster salary. I've got plans, Ethan. Big plans. Construction contracts, investment opportunities. I just needed some startup capital. From where? Marcus's pacing stopped. His eyes narrowed, and I saw the calculation there that Patricia's investigation had predicted. From the divorce settlement. Arizona's a community property state, brother. When Sarah divorces you, she gets half of everything. The house, your retirement fund, your savings, and she's going to share it with me because she loves me. Except Sarah's gone. She'll be back. She has nowhere else to go. No money, no friends who'd side with her after what she did. She'll come crawling back to me within a week. I stood up slowly, my mind crystal clear despite the surreal nature of the conversation. Marcus, can I ask you something? Can I ask? In all the time you spent planning this scheme, did you ever once consider that you might be wrong about me? Wrong about what? Wrong about what I have. Wrong about who I am. Wrong about how much you actually stand to gain from destroying my marriage. Something in my tone made him pause. For the first time since he'd walked in, Marcus looked uncertain. What are you talking about? I walked to my desk and pulled out a single sheet of paper. A bank statement I'd printed that morning. I held it up so he could see the letterhead but not the numbers. This is my Goldman Sachs investment account balance as of this morning. Marcus squinted at the paper. You don't have a Goldman Sachs account. You bank at that credit union downtown. I do now. Want to see how much your startup capital from the divorce settlement was actually going to be? I turned the paper around. Marcus stared at the number for a long moment. Then he grabbed the paper from my hands, reading it again and again, as if the digits might rearrange themselves. $14 million. His voice was barely a whisper. 14.2 million, actually. The market had a good day. Marcus sank into the couch, the paper trembling in his hands. This is fake. This has to be fake. It's not fake, Marcus. And Sarah never knew about it. The silence stretched between us. I could see Marcus's mind racing, recalculating everything. His scheme to get half my assets through Sarah had just become exponentially more valuable. But he'd also just realized he'd lost the key to accessing any of it. When he looked up at me, I saw something that chilled me to the bone. It wasn't regret or shame. It was pure, desperate greed. The transformation in Marcus's face was immediate and terrifying. The desperate brother was gone, replaced by something predatory and calculating. You son of a bitch, he whispered, still staring at the bank statement. You've been sitting on $14 million while I've been drowning in debt, losing my business, getting threatened by loan sharks. I forgot about the account, Marcus. I made the investment years ago, and bullshit! He stood up abruptly, his hand moving instinctively toward his jacket. You knew. You've always known. You watched me struggle, watched me borrow money, watched my life fall apart, and you said nothing. That's not true. How long, Ethan? How long have you been the secret millionaire while playing the humble insurance adjuster? How long have you been lying to everyone? I kept my voice steady, aware that Patricia's surveillance team was listening through the wire I was wearing. 7 years? I've known for 7 years. Marcus let out a bitter laugh. 7 years of Sunday dinners where I complained about money problems. 7 years of you watching me get desperate enough to... He stopped himself. Desperate enough to what, Marcus? Desperate enough to seduce my wife as part of some scheme to steal money you thought I didn't have. His face went red. She came to me, Ethan. Sarah came to me because she was tired of being married to a man with no ambition, no passion. The text messages say otherwise. I pulled out my phone and read from Patricia's report. Just get the wife on your side and we'll be set for life after the divorce settlement. That was you texting someone named Tony 3 weeks ago. Marcus went very still. How do you have that? Because I'm not the naive fool you think I am. I hired the best private investigator in Phoenix the day after you left. I know about your debts, your failing business, your loan shark problems. I know this was never about love. You don't understand, Marcus said, his voice taking on a pleading tone. Tony's not just a loan shark, Ethan. He's connected to people who break kneecaps when they don't get paid. I owe him $80,000. They're going to kill me if I don't pay up by Friday. And you thought stealing my wife would solve that problem? I thought. Marcus slumped back down, running his hands through his hair. I thought you maybe had 50,000 in savings, maybe 100,000 in home equity, enough for Sarah to get in the divorce that I could use to pay Tony off and start over. Instead, you discovered you could have been rich beyond your wildest dreams if I hadn't lost Sarah. Marcus looked up at me with something like desperation. Ethan, you have to help me get her back. I stared at my brother, the man who'd betrayed me in the worst possible way, asking me to help him continue betraying me. Even if I could. Why would I? Because I'm your brother. Because family means something. Because with $14 million, you could afford to help me and never even miss the money. Family means something. I stood up, anger finally breaking through my careful control. You seduced my wife. You planned to destroy my marriage for money. You brought a gun into my house. Marcus's hand froze halfway to his jacket. How did you? Because I'm not stupid, Marcus. Because when someone owes money to killers and gets desperate enough to steal their brother's wife, they get desperate enough for anything. And we stared at each other across the living room, where we'd watched football games, where he'd helped me paint walls, where we'd laughed over pizza countless times. All of it felt like it had happened to different people. Here's what's going to happen, I said quietly. You're going to leave my house. You're going to drive back to California. You're going to figure out your own financial problems without involving me or Sarah. And if I don't, then you'll discover that a man with $14 million has resources you can't imagine. Marcus reached under his jacket and pulled out a pistol, not pointing it at me, just holding it where I could see it. Or maybe, he said, his voice shaking, you'll discover that a man with nothing left to lose is more dangerous than any amount of money. Outside, I heard the subtle sound of car doors closing. Patricia's team was moving into position. Put the gun down, Marcus. Give me half the money, Ethan. $7 million. It's more than enough for both of us, and it solves all my problems. Or what? You'll shoot your own brother? Marcus's hand was trembling now. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool evening air. I don't want to hurt you, Ethan. But Tony's people will hurt me worse than you can imagine if I don't pay them by Friday. I need that money. Nah, and if I give it to you? Then what? You disappear forever? You try to get Sarah back? You come asking for more when you gamble this away too? I just need enough to start over. I looked at my brother holding a gun in my living room, demanding millions of dollars he thought he deserved, and I realized something that broke my heart more than Sarah's betrayal. Marcus wasn't my brother anymore. Maybe he never had been. Maybe he'd always been a stranger I'd happened to grow up with. The gun wavered in Marcus's grip as we stood there in a standoff that felt like it lasted hours, but probably only lasted seconds. Then I did something that surprised both of us. I laughed. You know what's funny, Marcus? 7 years ago, when I made that investment, I was dying. His expression faltered. What? Dying? Terminal cancer, according to Dr. Peterson. 6 months to live, maybe 8 if I was lucky. I sat back down, no longer caring about the gun. That's why I took our emergency fund and threw it at cryptocurrency. Sarah was working double shifts to pay for my treatments, and I figured if I was going to die anyway, maybe I could leave her something. Marcus lowered the gun slightly. You never told me you had cancer, because 3 months later, they figured out it was a misdiagnosis, lab mix-up. I wasn't dying after all, but by then, I'd already made the investment and forgotten about it. I was so relieved to be alive that money seemed trivial. You forgot about $8,000. I forgot about what I thought was lost money. I was focused on living, on appreciating Sarah, on being grateful for every day I had with my family. I looked directly at him, including you. Marcus's face crumpled slightly. Ethan, do you want to know why I never checked that account? Why I never touched that money, even after it started growing? He didn't answer, but he wasn't pointing the gun at me anymore. Because I was happy. Sarah and I were happy with our little life. We didn't need millions of dollars to feel rich. We had each other, we had our home, we had Sunday dinners with you. I felt like the wealthiest man in the world. But you could have helped me. All those times I complained about money. You never asked for help, Marcus. You complained, but you never asked. And honestly, I didn't know you were in real trouble. I thought you were just complaining. Marcus sank into the chair across from me, the gun hanging loosely in his hand. I couldn't ask. You were my little brother. I was supposed to be the successful one, the one who took care of things. So instead, you decided to steal my wife. I decided to take what you didn't appreciate. His voice hardened again. You had everything, Ethan. Beautiful wife, nice house, stable job, and apparently $14 million you didn't even bother to check on. You had everything and you acted like it was nothing special. It was special because it was real. It was built on trust and love, and it was built on lies. Marcus stood up, agitated again. You lied to Sarah about the money. You lied to me. You've been lying to everyone for 7 years. I didn't lie. I just didn't mention money I'd forgotten about. Same thing. We stared at each other across a chasm that felt unbridgeable. But then my phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and felt my heart stop. It was from Patricia. Sarah safe. But there's something you need to know. Call me immediately. Marcus noticed my expression. What is it? Sarah's safe. Where is she? Somewhere you'll never find her. Marcus raised the gun again, his desperation returning. You're going to help me get her back, and you're going to give me enough money to pay off Tony or what? You'll shoot me? How exactly does that get you the money, Marcus? How does killing me solve any of your problems? He blinked, as if he hadn't thought that far ahead. Besides, I continued, there's something else you should know about Sarah. What? I held up my phone, showing him Patricia's text. My private investigator just told me Sarah's safe, but she also said there's something I need to know immediately. Something important enough to call at midnight. Marcus's face went pale. What kind of something? I don't know yet, but given everything else I've learned about this situation, I'm guessing it's not good news for you. My phone rang. Patricia's number. Answer it, Marcus said, pointing the gun at me again. Put it on speaker. I answered the call and activated the speaker function. Ethan, Patricia's voice filled the room. I need you to listen very carefully. Sarah made it to the safe house, but she told us something that changes everything. What is it? I asked, watching Marcus's face. She said Marcus didn't just seduce her. She said he's been drugging her. The room went completely silent. What do you mean, drugging her? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Rohypnol, date rape drug. She said she started having memory problems about 6 weeks ago, right around the time the affair started. Blackouts, confusion, doing things she didn't remember agreeing to. Marcus had gone completely white. Sarah thinks Marcus has been drugging her to make her more compliant, more willing to go along with his plans. Ethan, this wasn't just infidelity and theft. This was systematic abuse. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and saw a stranger, a dangerous stranger who had poisoned my wife to steal my life. Marcus, I said quietly, you need to put that gun down, right now. Marcus's face had gone from white to gray, the color of concrete. The gun trembled in his hands as Patricia's words hung in the air like a death sentence. "That's not. I never," he stammered. "Put the gun down, Marcus," I said again, standing slowly. "I never drugged her," he shouted suddenly. "That's insane. Sarah's lying." Patricia's voice continued through the phone speaker. "Ethan, there's more." Sarah remembered something else. She said Marcus has been recording their encounters. She found his phone yesterday with videos she doesn't remember making. Marcus lunged for my phone, trying to end the call, but I stepped back. "Don't move," he said, raising the gun toward me. "This is all lies. Sarah's making this up because she regrets leaving you." "Is she making up the videos too, Marcus?" The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. "Oh my God," I whispered. "You really did it. You drugged my wife and recorded her while she was unconscious." "It wasn't like that." Marcus was sweating profusely now. "She wanted to be with me. The pills they just helped her relax, helped her forget about feeling guilty." "Rohypnol isn't a relaxation drug, Marcus. It's a rape drug. Don't call it that." "What would you call it?" Marcus was pacing now, the gun waving erratically as he moved. "It was complicated, okay? Sarah kept backing out, kept saying she couldn't do this to you. I just needed to help her get past that guilt so she could follow her heart. Her heart. Or your plan to steal my money." "Both! It was both!" Marcus stopped pacing and stared at me with wild eyes. "Don't you see? I was giving her the freedom to want what she really wanted. I was giving her permission to choose passion over security. You were drugging and raping my wife." Marcus flinched as if I'd slapped him. "Don't say that word." "What word? Rape? That's what it's called when you drug someone and have sex with them without their consent." "She consented. Did she consent to being drugged? She didn't need to know about that part." I felt sick. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was something monstrous. "Marcus, how long have you been doing this?" "Doing what? How long have you been drugging women?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. What? This isn't your first time, is it? Or, this is too calculated, too planned. You've done this before." Marcus's face crumpled. "You don't understand. Women say they want excitement, they want passion, but then they get scared. They change their minds. I help them get past that fear." "Jesus Christ, Marcus, how many women?" "It's not what you think. How many? 3, okay? 3 women over the years, but they all wanted it deep down. They told me they did. Before or after you drugged them." Marcus was crying now, ugly, desperate tears. "You're twisting everything. You're making it sound worse than it is." "I'm making it sound exactly like what it is. You're a serial rapist who targeted my wife as part of a scheme to steal money." "I love Sarah. You drugged and raped her. I love her!" Marcus screamed, and the gun went off. The bullet shattered the window behind me, but I barely noticed. Everything was moving in slow motion. Marcus was staring at the gun in his hand, as if he'd never seen it before. "I didn't mean to," he whispered. That's when my front door exploded inward. "Police! Drop your weapon!" Patricia's surveillance team flooded into my living room, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Marcus spun around, gun still in his hand, and I saw the decision form in his eyes. "Don't do it, Marcus," I shouted, but he was already raising the gun, not toward the police, toward me. "If I can't have the money," he said, his voice eerily calm, "then nobody can." 3 gunshots rang out simultaneously. Marcus fell backward, hitting the wall and sliding down to the floor. The gun clattered across the hardwood. I stood there, untouched, staring at my brother's body. Blood was spreading across his shirt, and his eyes were open but empty. "Sir, are you injured?" And one of the officers was checking me for wounds, but I couldn't process what he was saying. Sir, we need you to respond." I looked at the officer, then at Marcus, then at the broken window, then at my phone where Patricia was still on the line. "Ethan?" Patricia's voice was tinny through the speaker. "Ethan, what happened?" "He's dead," I said simply. "Marcus is dead." And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt absolutely nothing at all. The next 6 hours blurred together like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. police interviews, crime scene investigators, paramedics confirming what I already knew. Marcus was gone. The brother who'd taught me to throw a baseball was dead on my living room floor. I answered questions mechanically. Yes, he'd threatened me with a gun. Yes, he'd fired first. Yes, I'd been recording the conversation for my own protection. The wire Patricia had given me captured everything. The confession about drugging Sarah, the admission of previous assaults, the moment he'd chosen to point a gun at an unarmed man. By dawn, I was alone in my house again. The police had finished their work. The body was gone, and I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee while staring at the bloodstain they couldn't quite scrub out of my hardwood floor. That's when Patricia arrived. "How are you holding up?" she asked, settling into the chair across from me. "I don't know. I feel empty. Like someone hollowed me out with a spoon. That's normal. You've been through hell." "Patricia, I need to ask you something. When you investigated Marcus's finances, did you find anything about those other women he mentioned?" She nodded grimly. 3 unsolved cases over the past 5 years. Women who reported feeling drugged and violated, but couldn't remember enough details to press charges. Marcus was questioned in 2 of them, but never arrested. And now he's dead. And now those cases will finally get closure. I stared into my coffee cup. "Sarah doesn't know yet, does she?" "Not about Marcus being dead, but Ethan, there's something else. Something Sarah told us this morning that I think you need to hear." My stomach clenched. What now? She remembered something else about the night before she left with Marcus. She said she woke up in their motel room with a wedding ring on her finger that wasn't yours. "What do you mean?" "Marcus married her, Ethan. In Vegas 3 days ago. She was so drugged she barely remembered the ceremony, but she has a marriage certificate with her signature on it." The coffee cup slipped from my hands, shattering on the floor just like it had 4 days ago when I'd first read Sarah's letter. He married her while she was drugged. It gets worse. The marriage certificate shows Sarah's maiden name, which means Marcus somehow convinced her to sign divorce papers for your marriage first. "Divorce papers?" Patricia pulled out a manila folder. "We found these in Marcus's truck. Preliminary divorce filing dated 2 days ago. Sarah's signature, witnessed by someone named Tony Castellano, the loan shark. Marcus had used his criminal contact as a witness to divorce papers my wife had signed while being systematically poisoned. So legally, Sarah was no longer your wife when Marcus died. She was his widow." I laughed, but it came out broken and bitter. "So Marcus won after all. Even dead, he got what he wanted." "Actually, Ethan, that's not quite true." "What do you mean?" Patricia smiled for the first time since this nightmare began. "I mean that marriage certificate isn't worth the paper it's printed on." "Why not?" "Because Marcus was already married." I stared at her. "That's impossible." "Common law marriage in Texas. 3 years ago, Marcus filed taxes jointly with a woman named Rebecca Chen in Austin. They lived together, presented themselves as married, met all the legal requirements for common law marriage in Texas. But he never told me about any Rebecca, because Rebecca left him when she discovered he'd been drugging her too. But she never filed for divorce because she didn't know they were legally married under Texas law. My mind raced through the implications. So his marriage to Sarah is void. Bigamy isn't legal, even in Vegas. Which means Sarah's divorce from you was based on fraudulent documents, which makes it invalid too. So Sarah and I are still married? Technically, yes. Although given everything that's happened, I imagine you'll want to sort that out properly through the courts. I sat there, absorbing this information. After everything, the betrayal, the theft, the drugging, the violence, the death, Marcus's grand plan had failed completely. He'd died believing he'd won, but he'd actually accomplished nothing except destroying himself. "There's one more thing," Patricia said gently. "Sarah wants to see you. I don't know if I'm ready for that. She's not asking for forgiveness, Ethan. She's not asking to come home. She just wants to explain what she remembers and to return something that belongs to you." "What?" "Your grandmother's ring, the one Marcus used to marry her. She said it was in his pocket during the ceremony, and she realized later it was the engagement ring you told her about, the one that's been in your family for 3 generations. My grandmother's ring, the one I'd planned to give Sarah for our 10-year anniversary next month. Marcus had stolen it from my bedroom safe and used it to marry my drugged wife to himself. Where is she now? Safe house downtown. But Ethan, before you decide whether to see her, there's something else you should know. More bad news? No. Actually, this might be the first good news in this whole mess. What is it? Patricia pulled out another document. Sarah's blood work came back from the hospital. The Rohypnol is out of her system, but they found something else. What? She's pregnant. The world stopped spinning. How far along? About 6 weeks. Right around the time Marcus started drugging her. I felt something crack open in my chest. Not breaking, but opening, like sunlight through storm clouds. Is it mine? Based on the timeline and the fact that Sarah was being drugged during most of her encounters with Marcus, almost certainly. I stood up slowly, my legs unsteady. I need to see her. Are you sure? I looked around my house, at the blood stain on the floor, at the broken window, at the kitchen where I'd read the letter that started this nightmare. Then I thought about Sarah, alone and scared and carrying my child, trying to piece together weeks of memories that had been stolen from her. Yeah, I said, I'm sure. The safe house was a nondescript apartment building downtown, the kind of place where nobody asks questions and everyone minds their own business. Patricia led me up 3 flights of stairs to apartment 3B, where a federal agent named Rodriguez was standing guard. She's been asking for you every hour since dawn, he told me quietly. But sir, just so you know, she's pretty fragile right now. The drugs are out of her system, but the psychological effects. I understand. Patricia knocked softly. Sarah, Ethan's here. The door opened slowly and there she was. My wife of 8 years. The woman who'd left me a letter 4 days ago, the woman who'd been drugged and manipulated by my own brother. She looked smaller somehow, fragile in a way I'd never seen before. Her eyes were red from crying, and she was wearing clothes that were too big for her, probably from some victim's assistance program. Hi, Ethan, she said quietly. Hi. We stood there in the doorway for a moment, 2 people who'd shared a life together now feeling like strangers. Can we talk? Privately? I looked at Patricia, who nodded. We'll be right outside. Sarah's apartment was small but clean. She led me to a couch that had seen better days, and we sat on opposite ends like people afraid to get too close. I don't know where to start, she said. Neither do I. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I know that's not enough. I know sorry doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. I know you didn't. Do you? Because the things they're telling me I did, the things I wrote in that letter. God, Ethan, I don't remember writing that letter. I don't remember half of what happened over the past 6 weeks. I studied her face. The Sarah I'd married was sharp, intelligent, always in control. This Sarah seemed lost, uncertain, like someone trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. What do you remember? Bits and pieces. I remember Marcus offering to help me with something. I think it was planning your surprise birthday party. I remember going to coffee with him a few times to discuss it, but then everything gets fuzzy. Gosh, what's the next clear memory you have? Waking up in that motel room 3 days ago with a ring on my finger I didn't recognize, wearing clothes I didn't remember putting on. She started crying. And Marcus was there, acting like we were newlyweds, calling me Mrs. Caldwell, but with his last name. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my grandmother's ring, the one Patricia had returned to me an hour earlier. Is this the ring? Sarah's face crumpled when she saw it. Oh God. That's your grandmother's ring, the one you told me about, the one you said you'd give me someday when the time was perfect. Marcus stole it from our bedroom safe. He used it to marry me while I was drugged. She looked up at me with such pain in her eyes that I felt my heart break all over again. Ethan, he stole everything. He stole my memories, my choices, my marriage to you. He stole 6 weeks of my life. Sarah, there's something I need to tell you. Something about Marcus. I know he's dead. The agent told me this morning. They said he pointed a gun at you. Did they tell you why? Something about money? I don't understand that part. So I told her everything. The forgotten cryptocurrency investment, the $14 million, Marcus's debts, his plan to use her to steal money through our divorce. I watched her face change as each piece of the puzzle fell into place. $14 million, she whispered. I'd forgotten about the investment completely. I never meant to keep it secret from you. All this time, while I was working double shifts to help pay our mortgage, you had $14 million. I thought I'd lost the money years ago. I only found out about it the day after you left. Sarah was quiet for a long time, processing everything. So Marcus planned all of this? The affair, the marriage, everything? According to the evidence, yes. And I was just a tool, a way to get to your money? I think so, yes. She stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the city below. There's something else, I said gently, about the baby. Sarah's hand moved instinctively to her stomach. You know about that? The blood work showed it. Sarah, based on the timeline, the baby is mine. I know. I figured that out too. She turned back to me. The question is, what do we do now? What do you want to do? I want to go back to 6 weeks ago and make different choices. I want to not have coffee with Marcus. I want to not trust him. Trust. I want to not lose 6 weeks of my life to drugs and manipulation. But we can't do that. No, we can't. She sat back down closer to me this time. Ethan, I need you to know something. Even if I can't remember making the choices that hurt you, I still made them. Drugged or not, I still signed those papers. I still left with him. I still wrote that letter. You don't remember writing the letter? But I still wrote it. And that means on some level, even through the drugs, I was unhappy enough with our marriage to leave. That hurt more than I'd expected it to. Were you unhappy, Sarah? Before all this started? She was quiet for a long moment. Not unhappy, but maybe restless. We'd fallen into such a routine, Ethan. Work, dinner, TV, bed, repeat. I love you. I've always loved you, but I think I was starting to feel invisible. And Marcus made you feel visible? Marcus made me feel like someone worth pursuing, someone worth taking risks for. She looked at me sadly. Even if it was all manipulation, even if it was all fake, for a few moments, it felt real. I sat there absorbing that. My wife hadn't just been stolen from me. She'd been ready to be stolen. So where does that leave us? I asked. Sarah reached over and took my hand. I don't know. I know I love you. I know I'm carrying your child. I know I'm grateful you saved me from Marcus, but I also know that trust, once broken, is the hardest thing in the world to rebuild. Do you want to try? Do you? I looked at this woman I'd shared 8 years of my life with, now carrying my child, asking me to forgive the unforgivable and start over from nothing. Yeah, I said finally, I want to try. And for the first time since finding that letter 4 days ago, I meant it.